Today we will be having our last session. Okay, that means the final explanation on your chapter of circulatory system. So this chapter is kind of lengthy, and I think that you have been already bored, but all this explanation, each point are very important to understand the process of your circulatory system. Okay, so we have already discussed many things, but today we'll discuss about the heartbeat. So what do you understand by heartbeat? When you touch, okay, your chest, you can feel that something is pumping, right? So that you can feel that there's a rhythmic beating. Okay, that rhythmic beating is your heartbeat. And how does your heartbeat is produced is that when your, remember we were talking about in your heart you had auricles and ventricles. So when your auricles and ventricles, when they contract, okay, when they contract, they produce sound, and that sound, it is the heartbeat. Okay, and this heartbeat, okay, what happened is that even your heart muscles, okay, the heart muscles that are present in your heart, okay, they contract in a sequence. Okay, but what happened is that your auricles and ventricles will not would not contract together, as I've already explained to you in the previous sessions. So what will happen is that, let me show you with a diagram. So in this diagram, what will happen is that these auricles, okay, both these auricles, they will contract first. Okay, so when these auricles, they will contract, these vessels, they will relax. Okay, they will not contract. So what will happen is that when the blood flow here in this auricle, they will first contract and force the blood in the ventricles. They will push the blood in the ventricles. While they push the blood in the ventricles, these auricles, they will not contract anymore. They will relax for a second. Okay, and then your ventricles, they will start contracting, and then they will force the blood into your pulmonary artery, okay, as well as to your pulmonary artery here, as well as to your pulmonary veins. Okay, one, they will what happen is that one of your ventricles, they will empty. Okay, they'll empty the blood, and then they will send it to the aorta, and the other, which carries the oxygenated blood, okay, they will contract and send the blood towards the lung. So when they have pushed the blood out from them, these ventricles, they will start having, they will relax. There will be a relaxation. Okay, so what will this contraction and relaxation of your auricles, okay, and your ventricles, they generate your heartbeat. Okay, I hope you are clear now. What is heartbeat? That means when your auricles and your ventricles, they start contracting and have a relaxation, they produce a rhythmic sound, and that rhythmic sound, it is your heartbeat. And normally in a human, okay, in a healthy human heart, okay, in a healthy human heart, they mostly beat about 72 to 80 times. That is when they are resting, when they are not doing any physical activity. When you're just sitting, your heart beats around 70 to 82 times. Okay, and this heartbeat, they will increase when you do any type of physical activities, like when you run or when you do some workout. Okay, any type of activities, your heartbeat rate will increase. Okay, and this sequence of event, okay, that is the sequence of event that takes place during one complete heartbeat, it is known as your cardiac cycle. Okay, the sequence is involved in this sequence is mostly involved in the repeated contraction and relaxation. Okay, so when the contraction phase, okay, you already know what is your cardiac cycle. That means the sequence of event. Okay, that means the cycle that takes one complete heartbeat, it is known as your cardiac cycle. Okay, and then this contraction phase, it is also the contraction phase, it is also known as your systole. Okay, it's not, and the relaxation phase is known as your diastole. Okay, and your full heartbeat, they last for about 0.85 seconds, and this period they split as follows. Okay, this contraction phase, that is your systole phase, and your diastole phase, they will last, this contraction and this relaxation will last about 0.85 seconds. Okay, so this contraction and relaxations are split in this manner. Your systole, that is your auricles. Okay, your systole of auricle, that means when they contract for 0.15 seconds. And then your systole of ventricle, that is your contraction phase of your ventricle, they take about 0.30 second. And then your auricles and ventricles, when they are in a relaxation phase. Okay, auricle and ventricle, when they are in a relaxation phase, that means your diastole phase, it takes about 0.40. So when you plus all this together, you will get 0.85 second. Okay, so now you can understand that when your systole, that means when your contraction phase of your auricle and ventricle, they take this much of seconds, and your relaxation of your auricle and ventricle take this much of seconds. So that so the cycle takes around 0.85 seconds for the contraction and relaxation of your systole, I mean relaxation of your auricle and your ventricle. Okay, you know that during your each heartbeat, they produce two sounds are produced, right? That means the contraction of your auricles, they produce a weak sound, whereas a strong sound, you will hear there will be two beats. That is, I think you all know how your heart beats, right? So the one which has a weak sound, that is produced by your auricle. Okay, weak sound is being produced by auricle, and the strong sound, okay, the strong sound is being produced by your ventricle. Okay, and then how do you hear when you go for a checkup and all? With what does the doctor hear your heartbeat? They hear your heartbeat with an instrument known as your stethoscope. So I hope you're all clear with what is the heartbeat. So let's move on to pulse. Okay, so what is pulse? Okay, that's so pulse. What happens is that in a normal human heartbeat, as I've told you, that when they are at rest, they beat around 70 to maybe 70 to 72 times when they are at rest. Okay, so what happens is that every time when your heart pumps blood into the arteries, okay, when your heart pumps blood into the arteries, okay, into your arteries, they produce, or we can say they produce a rhythmic beating. Okay, the rhythmic beating of your arteries, okay, they produce a rhythmic beating, okay. So this rhythmic beating that is produced in your arteries, okay, whenever the heart pumps the blood, okay, into the arteries, they produce this rhythmic beating, and then this rhythmic beating of your arteries is known as your pulse. Okay, it is known as this pulse. So pulse, mostly they can be felt. Okay, this rhythm or wave can be also felt and counted, okay, in your arteries that is near your wrist. Okay, so this is my wrist. I can feel my pulse pumping here. Okay, I can feel my arteries that is being pumped. Okay, that is because whenever the heart they pump blood into your arteries, they produce a rhythmic sound. Okay, so there are some variations, or we can say there are some varieties of heartbeats per minute in different organisms. So different organisms, they produce different types of heartbeat, not that I mean the different amount of heartbeat, okay, the per minute. So you can refer to your book, that is page 85, that is table 6.4. You will see that how adult man, adult woman, and then newborn baby, as well as animals, how much their heartbeat takes place in per minute. Okay, so now let's move on to the next topic, that is your blood pressure. I hope you have all heard the term called blood pressure. So what is this blood pressure? Okay, so this blood pressure is the pressure, okay, that is applied by the blood on the walls of your blood vessels. Okay, so this blood, Okay, this pressure will be applied by your blood on the walls of your blood vessels, that is termed as your blood pressure. Okay, and these blood pressures, they are of two types. First one you have is your systolic pressure. We can also term them as your upper limit. And the next one you have, it is your diastolic pressure, also termed as your lower limit. Okay, so let's first discuss about what is your systolic pressure or your upper limit. Okay, so this systolic pressure, okay, they are the average pressure. They are your average pressure produced by your ventricles. Okay, they are the pressure that is produced by your ventricles. What happens is that when they contract, okay, so when they contract and pump, okay, what happens is that these ventricles, they will produce a pressure, especially when they contract and pump blood into your aorta and pulmonary artery. Okay, so this systolic pressure is the pressure that is produced by your ventricles when they start contracting, and when they start contracting and pumping the blood into your aorta and pulmonary artery, they produce the systolic pressure. And the normal systolic pressure in an adult, okay, in an adult it is about 100 to 140 mm of Hg. You always heard that person, they say that they have high blood pressure, where they have a low blood pressure. It is so because if the systolic pressure it is less than this, they will have a low blood pressure. If it's more than this, if they cross the amount of more than this, they will have a high blood pressure. Okay, now let's move on to your diastolic pressure. Diastolic pressure, or we can also say the lower limit. Okay, so this diastolic pressure, they are the pressure, okay, the average pressure that is produced when your ventricles, okay, when ventricles they get filled with blood. Okay, so when this pressure will be there will be the pressure that is produced, okay, by your when your ventricles they get filled with blood. That means when your auricles they fill the ventricles with the blood, okay, that produces your diastolic pressure. I hope you are clear. That means your systolic pressure, it means that when they pump and contract the blood from your ventricles and send it to your aorta or pulmonary artery. And then when it comes to your diastolic pressure, it will be the pressure that is produced when your ventricles they'll get filled with blood from the auricles. Okay, that will be your diastolic pressure. And the normal diastolic pressure, it is about 60 to 80 mm of Hg. Okay, so that means if a normal in an adult, the normal blood pressure should be 120. That means 120 of your systolic, this part is your systolic, okay, and 120, and then 80, this part is your diastolic pressure. Okay, so a normal human, okay, their blood pressure should be of this one, the upper limit. That means your systolic should have 120 and your diastolic should have your 80 mm of Hg. Okay, and then your blood pressure is checked by an instrument that is known as your sphygmomanometer. Okay, so this will be checked for your blood pressure. So I hope you're clear. Okay, so let's move on to the next. What are the conditions that are related to your heart functions? Okay, the conditions related to the heart functions. Let us discuss about this in details. Okay, you know that your heart is a very sensitive organs, okay? So the functioning of the heart, okay, is connected to many health conditions, okay? So that's why let us study in the details what are the conditions that are related to the heart function. So if you want, you can refer to a textbook, that is page 86. So sometimes you might feel that when you're going to give your exams or during exam time, you are such in a nervous situation that your heart start beating faster, right? So what happened is that the condition where your heart beat very fast and when we can feel the beating of our own heart, it is known as your palpitation. Okay, palpitation is that when the heart beats fast and we feel, okay, and we feel the beating of our own heart. That part, that is known as your palpitation. That means when you're so nervous, I think you all have feel that not only during exams or when you're going to perform something with, okay, when you get so nervous, sometimes you feel that your heart beats so fast and you can feel your heartbeat, okay? That is known as your palpitation, okay? The next point is that when the person, okay, it's having, okay, we have already discussed about your blood pressure. So here just take an example. If a person is having like 140 is systolic, and that means 140 by 90 mm of Hg, what will happen is that this person might be suffer from hypertension, we can see, or we can also call high blood pressure, because the normal rate for human adult, it is this much, right? So now when you check here this and this is more, right? So what will happen is that if a person suffer from more than this number, okay, so what will happen is that they always tend to have a high blood pressure, okay? And this high blood pressure, or we can say as the hypertension, okay, it is the major cause of disease such as your diabetes and your heart disease, okay? And the next one to have is your that is your functioning of your heart, that is your cardiac arrest, okay? So this cardiac arrest, so what happens when a person is suffering from cardiac arrest, okay, it is we can also term it as your heart attack, okay? So this heart attack or your cardiac arrest, it happens when there is a block in the flow of blood in your arteries, okay? We can say when there is a block in the flow of blood in arteries, okay? So sometimes what happen is that a person, especially this is very common, especially to a fatty person, okay, or a person who have so much of fats in their body, what happen is that there might be block, okay, where the blood cannot flow in the arteries. Such that time what happen is that it may cause clot or thickening of the arteries, okay? So that's why a person often tend to have a heart attack or cardiac arrest, okay? Now the fourth point is that we have already discussed about a pacemaker, right? So what happened is that we have already discussed about how the pacemaker work. So sometimes, remember, we were discussing about like a bundle of His or atrioventricular node. Remember your AV node or that His. Okay, sometimes what happened is that there might be an interaction. We can say there might be interruption while the conducting of electric impulse. Okay, so while the electric signals are being sent from the SV node, what happened is that when the blood flows, okay, when the electric signal try to flow towards your AV node as well as into the His bundle, what happened is that there might be an interruption. In that interruption, it can cause you a heart block, okay? So when there is a heart blocks, that time a pacemaker is being used, okay? This pacemaker, there's an electronic device, okay, that is used for if a person is suffering from this heart block, they use a pacemaker, okay? This pacemaker is an artificial one, okay? They are not the pacemaker which you're having now, okay? Sometimes when this pacemaker, the pacemaker tissue, when they are not working, this pacemaker and the artificial pacemaker is being used, that is an electronic device that gives a cardiac support, okay, so that they can produce a rhythmic impulse in the heart, okay? So I hope you're clear. Now let's move on to the lymphatic system. So what is your lymphatic system? Okay, they are mainly responsible, okay, they are mainly responsible for the removal of fluid waste from the body. Okay, they are mainly responsible for removing the fluid waste from the body. Okay, and they consist of a network of tissues, vessels and organs. Okay, and they also help in maintaining fluid balance. Okay, they also help in maintaining the fluid balance in the body. Okay, they also play an important role, okay, in fighting diseases. Okay, they play an important role in fighting diseases by producing lymphocytes. Okay, you remember these lymphocytes, they are the type of the white blood cells which are mainly responsible for fighting the diseases. Okay, so how does this lymphatic system function? I will explain to you with a diagram. Okay, so what happens is that when there is a flow of blood in your capillary bed, okay, so when there's a flow of capillary blood in the bed, what happens is that from the tissues, okay, when there's a flow of blood from the tissues in your capillary bed, what happens is that sometimes this plasma, okay, plasma and your leukocytes, they leak out from here. Okay, they leak out from here, they leak out. Okay, and this leak out, the fluid which has been leaked out from your capillary bed, they are known as your tissue fluid. Okay, the leak out, those plasma and leukocytes, okay, which are being leaked out from your capillary bed, they are known as your tissue fluid. Okay, so this tissue fluid, some of them will be reabsorbed back in your body. Okay, but some of them will be left behind. Okay, that left behind fluid, okay, suppose let's say about 90% of the fluid went back to your body. Okay, they went back to the body. Then 10% of the fluid, what happened is that they go to your lymph vessels. Okay, this 10% of fluid, they go to the lymph vessels. So this lymph vessels, okay, they look like vein, they resemble vein, okay, due to their thin walls and presence of valves. Okay, so the fluid in the lymph vessels, the fluid that is present in the lymph vessels, they are known as your lymph. Okay, the fluid that is present, the fluid that travels inside your lymph vessels are known as lymph, and this lymph, they are pale in color, pale yellow in color. Okay, and they form your lymphatic system. Okay, so I hope you're clear how does your lymphatic system works. First is that, let me repeat that, the plasma and the leukocytes, okay, which travels from your capillary bed, which travels from your tissue, okay, they get leaked out here, so the leak out, what happened is that let's say for example 90% will be reabsorbed in the blood. Okay, and then this 10% they'll go to the lymph vessels, and then these lymph vessels, they also contain a fluid that is known as your lymph. Okay, and this lymph, what will they do is that they will, since they have, I told you that your lymphatic system, they have leukocytes. Okay, so in this waste products, whatever there's a disease causing agents, okay, they will kill them, or they will fight against them. Okay, so your lymph, okay, your lymph, they contain a number of leukocytes. Okay, this lymph, they contain a number of leukocytes, as I have told you, that are able to fight against the disease causing agents. Okay, and they do not have any platelets. Okay, and this non-cellular part of your limbs, they contain okay, 94% of water, as well as they have 6%, the solid part, they have 6% of proteins, fats, your enzymes, inorganics, component, antibodies and carbohydrates. some point, okay, at some point of your lymph vessels, okay, at some point of your lymph vessels, suppose this is your lymph vessel, at some point there will be a swollen part, okay, that vessels will be, there will be some swollen, okay, there will be a swollen part, and that swollen part, it is known as your lymph nodes. Okay, the swollen part, it is known as your lymph node, and these lymph nodes are mainly present in your neck, armpit and groin region. Okay, and your thymus and your spleen are the important lymphatic organs. So I hope you understand how your lymphatic system work and what are the types of your lymphatic system. Now let's move on to the next. What are the functions? Since we are clear with the concept how does your lymphatic system work, now let us discuss about the functions of your lymphatic system. Okay, first one is that they help in collecting waste materials from tissues. Okay, and the second function they have is that they add more lymphocytes to the blood. They add more lymphocytes to the blood, and this is better, right? Because if you have more lymphocytes, that means there will be more armies. We could just take it for an example. There will be more armies to fight against those disease causing germs or any disease causing foreign particles. Okay, and then they also help, the other function is that they also help in maintaining the body fluids and blood volumes. Okay, so mainly these are the three functions that of your lymphatic system. So let's move on to the next. The next one is your blood test and diagnosis of disease. Blood test and diagnosis of your diseases. Okay, so this blood test is a common type of medical test. Whenever you're suffering from any type of disease, if you go, or if you're sick, what happens is that if you go for a checkup, what will they do? The first and foremost important thing is that they will ask you to do a blood test. Okay, so what is the importance of blood tests is that firstly they help in knowing your general state of health. Okay, they also help you in checking of any infection or disease, such as if you have, whether you have a typhoid, malaria, dengue, HIV or diabetes, etc. Okay, they also, because of your blood test, you also know that you can also check the working of your organs such as your liver and kidneys. Okay, and this blood test, they are mainly done in your pathological laboratory. Okay, so what will happen is that there'll be a lab technician, okay, that will take a blood sample, right? Have you been to a hospital or have you been to a place where they do a blood test? So what will they do is that this lab technician, what will they do is that they will take a big needle, okay, or you can say a syringe, and they will take your blood, okay, and then they will keep it in a bottle, okay, and they'll put your name, okay, and details of you, and what will they do is that this blood sample will be examined under the microscope, or they will be tested with chemicals, okay, and then you will get your result of your blood test. Okay, so finally we have finished with your circulatory system. I hope you are clear what does your circulatory system do and how does it work and what are the types of your circulatory system.